Good afternoon. It's 1:30 and I want to respect your time. We are going to begin. So welcome to our election integrity discussion workshop, however we want to call it. I'm going to begin with a few of the logistics that we need to share. We have a translator for Spanish speakers. Do we have anybody that needs a translator? Okay, we'll keep her on hold in case somebody does come in. So just please see one of our staff members over here and they'll set her up with whoever. You need Spanish? Okay, there is agenda. It's not a normal kind of agenda, but there is an agenda and it was posted for our workshop. And if you wish to speak, you need to fill out a public comment. I'm going to share some information. Some of you weren't happy when I started sharing it, so I'm going to share it all together. Public comment is public comment. You can't share your time. So if you were going to be giving your time to somebody else, that doesn't happen on public comment. You'll know this at any of our meetings. Public comment are items that are not significantly on the agenda, so we're not going to have that today. Depending on how many speakers we have, we're hoping not to reduce the time. It just depends on how many more cards come in. Right now we're at 3 minutes. If more cards come in, we may have to drop it, just depending, just so we can get done by. We were only going to have this for 2 hours, and I convinced my friend here to do it for 3. So we're 3 sharp.
Okay.
Okay? Let's see. And hopefully I don't need to get into this about no crude vulgarity or any of that. Let's just make this cordial. It's a learning opportunity. Those of you who I've met with, which many of you in the audience, I have all your materials, I think. I may be missing a few. I have met with a lot of you. I've met with others. I've met with legislatures. I have really taken this very serious. And so I have been filled with a lot of information. Most of it will be shared today. That's what we're going to be going through with some presentations. I think I've covered everything. Okay, there is just the exit back here. Yes? I would be honored if you led us in prayer.
Good idea.
Thank you.
Father, rejoice to be in your presence. Thank you for this meeting. Thank you for the room, the people who came out. Thank you for the staff who put it together. Thank you for the desire to share ideas. May we break bread together, looking at things, trusting in you, and may we all be blessed with our time today. It may go quickly. It may be engaging. So I pray a blessing upon all the board of supervisors, and I pray that for the people in this room, that they will walk out enjoying this time together. We ask this in Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you.
Let's leave.
Okay, we're going to have Mr. Perez lead us to the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me in saluting our flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, in short, our time together will consist of our opening remarks. I'll let Supervisor Perez go in a second. We will have a presentation from our register voter, Mr. Art Tucano, and then we'll have presentation from County Council. When all of you have shared all the laws, they have put together a packet of all the laws. Hopefully we'll be covering all that you've shared with me, they're aware of, and explain how these laws work in the whole system. And then we'll go back to public comment from there, and then back to the committee, which is just the 2 of us, and have discussion, and then closing remarks. So it's kind of simple, but it will be long because there's a lot of information. There's a lot of good information, and quite often we don't understand everything, and we rely on others. I think we've got the group that knows everything, so I'm sure that you will let us know if we forgot something, and that's okay. As long as we know that we are here to have a productive afternoon, we want to learn together, and we all want the same thing. We all want a fair and transparent election. That is the bottom line. That's what we want. Remember, we are electeds. We want to make sure that the opportunity is there. Those of you who don't know, I've had 9 elections already. That's a lot. I've put up with stuff that I wasn't happy with. And when I came on the board 6 years ago, that was my first goal, and we made a lot of changes. Some of you knew some of that was going on. And we make change through positive interaction, sharing of information. So that's what we're going to do today. So from there.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be very quick. I think you said it all, but let me just first and foremost say thank you to our folks that are here. I know you've been waiting a while, and so I'm glad we're finally here to hear from you. Obviously, the concerns that you've brought up already on various occasions. I'm also looking forward to learning from you, but not only that, some of the ideas that you bring up, put them into action. And what does that look like over time? How do we ensure at the end of the day that our elections not only are fair, but they are of integrity, and that every vote counts? Obviously, that's really important to all of us, especially those of us that run for office. And so all of you are here because you care about this process, you care about your community, you care about our country, or else you would not be here, in my opinion. And then some of you even drove from as far out, potentially as the Coachella Valley, or maybe up the hill, or all the way to the end of the west end of the county. Thank you for driving out. I will just say as well, our chairwoman did express this. Let's try to be respectful. Obviously, we get passionate, I get it. So do I. At times I have to bite my tongue. But that's all right. I'm also, I've been in office for quite some time now where I've grown some thick skin. But with that said, though, it still hurts. So if you would, please, let's stick to the facts, to the data, statistics, the history, your experiences as you know them. And I'll be definitely listening to you. And I assume this is not going to be the only one. We're probably going to come back again. And fortunately, hopefully, by the next time we get together, some changes would have occurred. It's going to take some time, but we'll get there. Thank you so much.
Okay. Art, are you ready?
I'm ready. All right. Can everybody hear me okay? Very good. All right. Well, again, thank you, everybody, for this opportunity for the Registrar of Voters to speak. Again, my name is Art Tinoco, Registrar of Voters for Riverside County. Welcome again to this Election Integrity Workshop with the Election Ad Hoc, today, August 12th. I do want to start off with a quick comment that the Riverside County Registrar of Voters, ROV, is committed to upholding the election laws and regulations to ensure the integrity, transparency, and accuracy of the electoral process. So I hopefully do hope that you find the presentation informative. And again, I am open to any questions towards the end of this presentation if necessary. I'll start off with what's been happening over the last 10 months. So a lot of change in our office. Part of that change includes leadership change, as many of you already know, in addition to many new processes that we've implemented. I'll start off with some of the change in leadership. Again, myself, I came in December of 2023. Also, I appointed Matthew Ceballos, our Assistant Registrar of Voters, who is here with me today as well. Leticia Flores, she is inundated by candidate statements because our nomination period closed on last Friday, August 9th. However, she oversees our services division, which comprises of campaign disclosures, candidate services, customer service, petitions, vote by mail processing, vote file maintenance, signature verification, ballot counting, and ballot processing. I'm also very proud to have in the team Alice Kim, who came to us November of 2023, and she is our Registrar of Voters over the Operations Division. She oversees our election officer recruitment and procurement, our vote center selection, procurement, and also our geographic information systems to ensure our voters are receiving the right ballot type that they're entitled to. Also, she oversees our warehouse logistics, and she also ensures that we follow our records retention schedule. Also on the team and who is here with me today is Elizabeth Florer. She is our Department Public Information Officer. Again, a new team member just added back in December of 2023. She proudly oversees our outreach and education, promotes civic engagement, also oversees our press releases, and also is our media liaison within the community and our community liaison. And of course, she is also the person that is responsible for processing PRA requests. Again, brand new leadership over the last 10 months, working very hard to ensure that elections are carried out with the utmost importance in following election laws and regulations. The first item I want to talk about this afternoon, which a lot of questions are being asked from the public, is voting and tabulation equipment. I know that in previous presentations I noted that the systems that are not connected to the internet include the ones listed on the right of this slide. That is our ballot-on-demand printers. We do send out one per vote center. One ballot-on-demand printer is out there for any voter who may wish to vote on a paper ballot. We also send out one ballot scanner to each vote center, and again, ballot scanners are there for any voter who wishes to use them to be able to scan their ballot and tabulate it right there and then at the vote center, and or the voter has the option of simply dropping off their ballot into the ballot box, and then those ballots come back to our office, and then we scan them. Also, we have an accessible voting unit, also known as our ballot marking device, and again, there is 10 of these per vote center. And then we also have 10 high-speed ballot scanners at the Registrar of Voters office. I'd like to point out that all of this equipment, none of it is connected to the internet. However, I'd like to point out that there is election equipment that is connected through a secured county network, and that is our check-in laptops. We actually set up 5 of those per vote center. There is internet connectivity at these vote centers to access the information, our voter information at our office. Our CIT does establish and monitor a secure connection to each vote center. Again, check-in laptops also are used to verify if a voter is registered in Riverside County, to access the latest voter information, and verify a voter only casts a ballot. Again, laptops utilized for check-in are entirely independent and do not interface with the voting system, ballot tabulation equipment in any way. This voting equipment you see here today also requires to be certified at the federal level by the United States Elections Assistance Commission, the EAC, at the state level by the Secretary of State. And also our office underwent a cybersecurity and infrastructure security assessment for both the physical vulnerabilities and cybersecurity vulnerabilities, and we are working through that process at the moment. California Elections Code defines also 18564.5 that again, any of this equipment shall not be tampered with, or else there are certain legal ramifications of doing so. So that is our voting and equipment tabulation in Riverside County. There's a lot of questions surrounding signature verification, and the first item is training. What does that look like for the Registrar of Voters office? Staff do receive thorough training to ensure precise and dependable signature verification. I'd like to point out that in September, we are going to be trained by a forensic document examiner, so that is a plus. And again, this training is being offered to us by the California Secretary of State. And also there's trainings throughout the year offered by the Secretary of State, as well as the California Association of Clerks and Elections Officials. So again, lots of training goes into this, and also from our own staff following the Secretary of State guidelines on signature verification. I'll continue speaking about signature verification as it is an important part of this process. First of all, I'd like to take us back to the ballots that come from the USPS, any ballots coming from the USPS, any ballots coming from one of our 107 vote centers that are established throughout the county of Riverside, or any ballots that actually come back through our own drop boxes outside or vote centers. All of these ballots go through a mail sorting machine that actually, that machine, what it does, it takes an image of the envelope signature, which then that image is transferred to our election management system, where we actually have signature verifiers review not only the signature on file on the election management system side, but also the envelope image that is taken. I'd like to point out that an exact match is not required for an elections official to determine that a voter's signature is valid. The fact that signatures share similar characteristics is sufficient to determine a signature is valid. Another important note is the examination of the signature shall be liberally construed in favor of the voter. The law really indicates that as soon as I receive that envelope with that signature, the law says that I am going to presume that that is the voter's signature. In the event that there are differences in that signature, that envelope will go through various levels of review. The first review is done by a temporary employee. The second review is done by a permanent employee. And at that point, if we find that the signature still, there's no similarities, then we will be sending out a letter, which I'll talk more about more in a few minutes. It's called a cure letter. But it's very important to note that at that point, the cure letter is sent out, and still management will do a third verification if a letter does not come back curing that signature. So let's talk a little bit about that cure letter. If the active registered voter did not sign a vote-by-mail ballot envelope, a cure letter immediately goes out to that voter. Or if the election officials has determined the signature on the vote-by-mail ballot envelopes do not compare to the signatures or signature of the registered voters file, then a cure letter will be sent. And again, that's after the second attempt to identify that the signature just does not match. At that point, we send out the cure letter. I also want to touch upon the assessment recommendations by former Registrar of Voters Neil Kelly. We have thoroughly reviewed approximately 70 recommendations and are actively working to address them, including enhancing and maintaining accurate voter rolls. We are dedicated to completing the initial phase of the enhanced voter roll improvements before ballots are printed this September of 2024. Our team is working diligently to meet this deadline in compliance with state guidelines. I would also like to point out that aside from that recommendation, we've been actively working on renovations of the Register of Voters office to make it more transparent, to allow for additional room at our office to do several other processes that are necessary to successfully conduct and also canvass an election. We did renovations between December 2023 and January of 2024. We're currently working on phase 2 renovations. I've added windows, new carpeting, new areas, to new equipment to be able to expedite all those processes. Also, the recommendations including hiring chief deputies. We have hired 2 new chief deputies, again coming in with elections experience, which is also very important. Also, recommendations included redesigning the website, which we've redesigned our website, and many other recommendations that are currently in progress and or have already been completed. Another important question is voter file maintenance. I like to touch upon this very important process. Voter file maintenance is important to the Register of Voters office. In California Elections Code sections 2200 to 2227, it mandates that the Register of Voters follow the file maintenance procedures to update voter records. The government agencies that our office uses to cross-reference the data includes the United States Postal Service's National Change of Address Information, also known as NCOA. We actually get daily updates on that. DMV change of address information coming from the DMV, we get daily updates on that. USPS undeliverable mail, we get daily when ROV mails election material. Any of these documents could come back with missing information, registration cards, etc., ballots during the election period. The mortality report for local and state, we receive once a month. And felony cancellation reports, we receive weekly from the state and local. Conservatorship cancellation reports, we receive from state and local, again, weekly and twice weekly. Also, I'd like to point out that the Register of Voters works with the vote-by-mail ballot vendor to verify voter data is checked twice before printing of official ballots. We started doing that since the November 2023 local Paris election. It was a special measure election. And then we also did that for the March 5th, 2024 election and the June 4th, 2024 Temecula Valley Unified School District election. The ROV has contracted with Experian to enhance voter file maintenance, which I will talk more about the results and what we plan to do as part of our process, not only this election, but any future elections. It's important for me to start off by providing you an overview of the various statuses of different types of voter data. We have active voters. These are voters who do receive or are mailed out a vote-by-mail ballot, and voter information guide is also mailed to these folks. We also have a category known as active voters. These voters do not receive election materials. However, they can activate their registration by either contacting the Register of Voters office or going to a vote center or coming to our vote center at the Register of Voters office. There's also a category called canceled voters. These voters do not receive election materials, and they must re-register to become an active registered voter if they wish to continue being active on the voter rolls. And then we also have a fourth category, a pending voter. These voters do not receive election materials because more information is required, which may include maybe their address was incorrectly written in, or maybe they did not provide the prerequisites of a birth date and or the last four digits of their social security number, their ID number, or driver's license number. In relation to voter eligibility verification, we also have VoteCal maintenance. VoteCal is a very important piece to the puzzle because VoteCal is connecting all the counties in the state of California, or 58 counties, to a California centralized voter registration database, something we didn't have the luxury many years back. Now we do. County elections officials use VoteCal to identify duplicate registrations, transfer a voter's record when they have more moved between counties, verify registration records to ensure voters are not disqualified due to criminal convictions, and perform various other tasks. Please note that these tasks are completed daily. Data also provided by the DMV via VoteCal does ensure accurate voter eligibility verification. We continuously address and resolve issues identified in VoteCal through our voter management system on a routine daily basis. Again, I want to point that out. Our voter management system helps identify potential duplicate voter records, process voter address changes, and flag voters who may be deceased or have felony convictions. Let me come back to Experian and what we have done this election. It's the very first election in Riverside County. Some other counties have been using Experian for a few elections, but Riverside County, it'll be the first. If the county elections, the law says if the county elections official contracts with a consumer credit reporting agency, the consumer credit reporting agency or its licensees shall search their database for each name and address provided by the county elections official and shall report to the county elections official any information indicating that the registered voter changed his or her residence address. I'd like to point out that while Experian does help confirm names and addresses are up to date, it takes further review by the Register of Voters to ensure the authenticity of this data. We can't simply take the Experian data that's provided to us and immediately go and activate a voter file or cancel a voter file. So that's very important because that's also in law. We have to do certain steps before we go there. And that's what I'll share in a few minutes. What did we receive as far as data results from Experian TrueTrace this last time we sent them data? We sent over 1.34 million voter files to Experian recently, a few weeks ago. 123,541 records were returned as having a potential best new address. So we send Experian our address, and then they compare that to the voter's consumer file at Experian to see if that address is the same or it's different. In this case, they are saying that there's a best new address. There's a new address on that credit file. Approximately 64,500 records are potential in-county moves. What that means is these voters are still in Riverside County, but they moved within Riverside County. Approximately 32,500 records are potential out-of-county moves in California, meaning that these voters moved within the 58 counties in California. And approximately 26,000 potential, I like to direct you to that key term, potential, out-of-state moves, meaning that about 26,000 voters moved out of state. But we have to be very careful with these voters because you could move out of state. Let's say you're a student. However, you might not consider that college address your domicile, and you're still registered in Riverside County because that's what you consider your domicile. The law allows you to do that. Same thing happens with the snowbird. Many of us go home maybe to a temporary home in Idaho, Washington, Montana, Nevada, you name it, Arizona, to be more local. And again, you consider that home not to be your domicile. You still come back to Riverside County because you consider Riverside County to be your home, your primary residence. Again, that's why these are so tricky. We will need to do additional research with these 26,000, and I'll share with you what we're planning to do. 146,406 returned at no best address. Experian could not validate, but also couldn't invalidate that these voters have a new address. So those are on our radar at the moment. And then they also provided us 1,080 potential deceased information was returned, records returned, where there is a potential, again, key term. As we did some research here, we found that some of these voters may have a similar name to somebody else in the household, and the person that's really registered is not the one that is deceased. So additional research needs to take place. Keynote here is 1.07 million voter files were returned as matched data. What that means is what the data we sent out, the address data to Experian, what they had on file was exactly the same. 1.07 million voter files returned. California Elections Code 2227 defines how we are to use any of these agencies to be able to do this analysis for us. The law is very limited on how much information we can provide. And again, we cannot disclose PII or personal identifying information. What are we planning to do? What are next steps? So on Wednesday, we are going to be sending a change of address postcard to that first group of voters. And I'm going to go back to the 123,541 and the 146,406. That's the card we'll be mailing out to these voters. I'd like to point out that if the voter does return this postcard with their information telling us that they moved out of Riverside County, they now live in another part of the county, whatever information they return to us or they want an update to the record, we then are authorized to make the update if the voter signed, dated, and returned this postcard. If the voter decides, or if the voter no longer lives at that address or decides not to respond to this postcard, the active voter record remains active. The Register of Voters cannot make any changes to that active voter file because nothing's been confirmed, and that's law. Again, Elections Code 2227 clearly delineates that requirement. The voter notification card, we're going to send those to the 1,080 potentially deceased voters. Again, there's no guarantee that they're deceased, but we can't inactivate or cancel any voter files until we confirm with the voter if indeed there is a voter that is deceased. And that's what we're trying to do. We just can't go in there and make changes to the voter file unless we hear back from the voter. In this case, we might be hearing back from a family member. If we don't hear back from the voter, remember, potential. There's the risk that some of these data records are not accurate coming back from Experian. So we have to make sure if we hear back from the voter, guess what? That's not the deceased voter. If we don't hear back from the voter and we get a card saying the voter is deceased, maybe it was a family member, maybe it was somebody within the household, then we can take action at that point and we can inactivate that voter file. That's why extra cleanup needs to be done. USPS ballot process. So again, a lot of questions regarding the USPS and the ballot process. Although we do not have direct oversight of the United States Postal Service operations, we do maintain a partnership through meetings with these local officials and, of course, the California Secretary of State. The Register of Voters guidelines are outlined within California Elections Code Section 3020, and again, you can reference them as to the guidelines we must follow at the Register of Voters. The Register of Voters, unfortunately, does not have a way to independently verify the USPS's estimates in any way. On the same topic, the Register of Voters USPS ballot process, what is it we do at the office? We do daily mail pickups. The Register of Voters warehouse staff in teams of 2 pick up mail from the USPS every single day. Mail handling procedures during elections are also very important to us. We do have staff assigned. Our warehouse coordinator assigns 2 staff members from our mail team to handle all daily mail responsibilities from Monday through Friday and on Saturdays during peak election periods. There's also a mail tray reporting process. During peak periods, the mail team will provide the warehouse coordinator with an approximate count of mail ballot trays received before returning to the Register of Voters office. And then there's also an election day protocol. On election day and for several days afterwards, warehouse staff conduct a minimum of 3 mail ballot pickups. Again, the Register of Voters is exploring additional measures to enhance our chain of custody from the United States Postal Service to the central county location, that is the Register of Voters office. Again, we follow California Code of Regulations Title II, Section 20107 for this particular process. I also want to direct your attention to the ROV USPS ballot process for undeliverable ballots. I know there's been a lot of questions from our community regarding what do we do with these ballots and what are they. These ballots are ballots that have been mailed out by our office. However, they come back to our office undeliverable, really, as the term implies. We know that they're undeliverable because of the label, that yellow label on the bottom right-hand side of the envelope on that corner. That immediately cues us, this is undeliverable. Ballots are sorted by non-deliverable categories, so that's also important. For example, some voters are temporarily away. You or I could be out on vacation for a few weeks, and again, maybe our mail got forwarded somewhere else, and again, it's temporary. So again, those are the only unique category that I'll talk more about in a few minutes. Otherwise, any undeliverable, straight undeliverable, in-county address changes, out-of-county address changes, out-of-state address changes, all of that undeliverable mail we must process. All ballots except for temporary away are recorded in the voter file as non-deliverable ballots, are then processed as a third-party change of address. So I'll share with you what those steps are here in a few minutes so that we're all on the same page as to how we handle those undeliverables. Again, factors to consider: out-of-county address changes, out-of-state address changes, in-county address changes. Please remember, there's possible factors there such as students in college. Many of these are not out of state. A voter in college in Arizona may still consider Riverside County to be their address and domicile and their address of residence. Out-of-state address changes, same thing. You have folks and or students who may consider out-of-state and or out-of-county. Their home is still in Riverside County. And again, those are the 2 possible factors that we have to keep into consideration when determining the voter being out of the county or out of the state in these circumstances. The Register of Voters third-party change of address. Here's the information you're seeking. So anytime we actually find that a voter has potentially moved, we will send out a third-party change of address postcard. The voter registration file of a voter who fails to respond to the address verification mailing and who does not vote at any election between the date of the mailing and the 2 federal general elections after the date of that mailing shall be canceled. Again, this is for any undeliverable circumstances, with the exception of the one that I mentioned, which is temporarily away. So that is that process. So there is a process to be followed. I also want to bring your attention to the return undeliverable ballots history in Riverside County. In 2021, this graph really clearly delineates how much work we've been doing over time. In 2021, during the recall, we had a little bit over 30,000 undeliverable ballots come to us. In June of 2022, that number dropped to probably around 23,000. And then in November 2022, that dropped to under 20,000. And then in March of 2024, which was this last election, we are a little bit over probably 13,000. You can clearly see that the number of undeliverable ballots is less and less over time. And that is testament to all the work not only that Riverside County is doing, but also the state. The state has really embarked in ensuring that we continuously and even more frequently maintain our voter rolls as we move forward. And as we actually engage in going above and beyond like Riverside County is doing with Experian, you'll continue to see this downward trend because more is being done as we move into the future and into November 2024. The other important question that I get asked a lot is postmarked ballots, the postmark plus 7 rule. Ballots must be postmarked on or before Election Day in order to be counted. A late ballot is any ballot we receive after the 7 days, and that's for any election. Voters are informed via various resources about this deadline through the County Voter Information Guide 40 days before the election, their vote-by-mail envelopes through their vote-by-mail ballots 29 days before the election, voter instructions that go inside of those envelopes, website, and press releases. Late ballot processing is very important to us because upon receiving ballots from the USPS, an ROV staff member immediately date stamps each envelope. Ballots are then entered into a voter file. And then lastly, ballots are securely stored in labeled trays by ROV staff members. And they are securely stored in ballot storage rooms. And again, that's a very important part of our process. I wanted to talk a little bit about the June 4th, 2024 election. And I want to talk about what we are looking for at the Register of Voters when we're reviewing this election before we actually certify the election. And that is we're looking at vote-by-mail tabulated ballots and also vote-by-mail returned. What are vote-by-mail tabulated? Those are the ballots that are tabulated, scanned and tabulated in our ballot counting room. We have 10 ballot scanners at our office. What is vote-by-mail return? They are the actual vote-by-mail envelopes coming from the USPS, from vote centers, or from a ballot drop-off site, and that are made good by one of our operators. That is a vote-by-mail that is returned good. So the numbers incorporated in this June 4th election are ballots returned good with valid signatures. I'd like to bring your attention to the fact that not all ballots proceed to the signature verification stage process due to reasons such as a voter may decide to spoil a ballot. They mark the box on the envelope and then they say spoil. I would like a new ballot issued to me. A ballot that is challenged, potentially the ballot got challenged because of the signature and we never got any cure letter from that voter to cure that signature, or the voter forgot to sign the envelope and we never received a cure affidavit so that we can fix that, so that we can count that ballot. Any voided ballots or surrendered ballots. The methods we also employ as part of our auditing is a 1% manual tally, a roster audit. We actually take a report and we just look at the roster, at the names and signatures. We're looking down the roster to compare, to make sure that the number of voters that voted, actually the roster shows those numbers. And we're doing a reconciliation. Also, return ballots compared to tabulated ballots, as pointed out, vote by mail tabulated we are using versus vote by mail returned. And another question that's come up quite frequently is voter pre-registration. Again, eligible Californians ages 16 or 17 can complete an online registration form to pre-register. This is found under California Elections Code 2102, Section D. No ballot will be sent until legal voting age is reached. The voter's registration does become active at 18 years old. The Register of Voters does receive a list from the state, and staff manually update the data on a monthly basis. Another common question is voter ID requirements. According to California Secretary of State, California does not require voters to present voter ID at a vote center. Again, under California Code of Regulations, Title II, Section 20107. Exception, a voter will be asked to provide identification if it is their first time voting in a federal election. This applies if the individual registered by mail without providing a driver's license number, state identification number, or the last 4 digits of their social security number. Another important item I want to point out is the application to purchase voter data. There seems to be a lot of questions on whether or not folks are allowed to purchase voter data. So the Secretary of State guidelines do determine whether the application is complete and whether state law permits the proposed use of voter registration data. And the following are the purposes: for election purposes, candidates communicating data to voters, candidates currently running in state, local, federal elections for campaign-type purposes, a committee for or against an initiative or referendum measure, political purposes, scholarly purposes, journalistic purposes. The Register of Voters, again, reports any irregularities to law enforcement and authorities. Again, election integrity is paramount to my office. Vote-by-mail drop boxes in Riverside County. I also like to point out that our drop boxes are not only secure, but we do place them throughout Riverside County with folks who actually tend to those boxes. 107 vote-by-mail drop-off boxes are situated 29 days before the election throughout Riverside County. 2 of those are 24/7 secure VBM drop boxes at my campus at the Register of Voters office, and there are security cameras always pointed at those boxes 24/7. 28 are VBM ballot drop-off sites at city clerks. Again, these are secured behind counters by our city clerks. We maintain a very positive relationship with them at every election, including November. 58 plus non-city VBM drop-off locations function between 10 to 3 p.m. daily, with the exception of weekends, and these are secured by 3 election officers. And why do I have 3? In the event that 2, we always require that 2 stay behind in the event that one of them or any of them need to go on break or need to go on any other required time off. So again, that's VBM drop boxes in Riverside County. Safety of election officers in Riverside County is paramount to my office. We recognize that election officers play a crucial role in the democratic process, and their security is essential in ensuring the integrity of our elections. 150 vote centers this November, plus 107 BVM drop-off sites, over 1,000 employees that we will be hiring for this work. We work closely with law enforcement agencies and other relevant authorities to address any threats. Again, this collaborative approach helps to ensure the safety of election officers and maintain the integrity of the electoral process. And then lastly, November 2024 election. Folks, I'm only 85 days away from this upcoming, very, very important upcoming election. Again, we're very proud of the work we do. We have approximately 1,500 election officers that will work at vote centers and ballot drop-off sites. We still have to train them. The nomination period just ended this last Friday, August 9th. And then we are way on our way to start developing our official ballot and our county voter information guides. Approximately 1,200 temporary employees will be hired here soon in phases. And again, that is to get this election canvassed and again conducted as smooth as possible. Again, if you're interested to apply, we do pay $20 an hour. Please do apply today. We welcome anybody to come and help us out as we do have a huge, huge task ahead of us. And we're, the Registrar of Voters Office team is ready and proudly serving. We're all proudly serving to ensure the success of that election. Again, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, Twitter, also on many other platforms there. And then also, you may contact us if you have any suggestions, recommendations through our ROV webmail, by phone, by mail, or at our office, or simply by fax. I think faxes still exist, so very good. With that, I'd like to thank all of you for the time and opportunity for me to come up and speak and address you regarding what we do in Riverside County and what we proudly do. We're very, very, very proud of what we do here in Riverside County. So thank you so much. And now I'm going to go ahead and County Council.
Quickly, before County Council, I just got one question. Thank you, Art, for that.
Sure.
Just one question, because I just want to kind of get a feel from you and then the public real quick. On a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the extreme best, as far as integrity of the efforts, where would you rate your team, the elections for Riverside County?
I absolutely would like to say 5, but there's always room for improvement in any process you do, regardless if it's register of voters or any other department in the state, county, country, you name it. I would say probably we're at a 4.8 at the moment. We feel pretty comfortable with all of the processes we've done. And again, there's much more to do, and we understand that.
For the public, on a scale of, same question, on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 feeling like this is not working at all or hasn't worked, 5 being 0. Our county has done very, very well. And I don't think a 0 or a 5 would actually make any sense here. But nonetheless, though, if you can just raise your hand, I'll just take a look at what you have there.
0. That's a 1.
Okay, I see a lot of 2s more than anything else. A couple of 1s, a couple 5s, and 1 extremist at 0. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Art.
Sure, you're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, next we're going to have
Good afternoon, supervisors, county staff, and members of the public. I am Deputy County Counsel Stephanie Nelson, and I am one of the assigned attorneys for the Register of Voters. Okay. So first, the legal hierarchy for elections. Under Elections Code Section 10, the California Secretary of State is the Chief Elections Officer. All the Register of Voters and county clerks in all 58 counties of California function as a ministerial and administrative arm under the California Secretary of State in a united goal of carrying out all the elections. So for voter roll maintenance, Elections Code Section 2201 states that the reasons for cancellation of a voter registration are for the following: at the signed written request of the person registered, when the mental incompetency of the person registered is legally established, upon proof that the person is presently imprisoned or on parole for conviction of a felony, upon the production of a certified copy of a judgment directing the cancellation to be made, upon the death of the person registered, pursuant to Elections Code Article 2, which I'll talk about in the next slide, upon official notification that the voter is registered to vote in another state, or upon proof that the person is otherwise ineligible to vote. So on January 1st, 2020, Elections Code 2200 series was amended by Assembly Bill 501. So that essentially removed the ability to cancel voter registration due to lack of voting. So the newly added Elections Code 2226 mandates that the ROV move a voter to inactive status if official election mail is received by the ROV as undeliverable from the USPS, and samples were shown by Art. The voter is then mailed a residency confirmation card. The voter's status remains inactive until a signed affidavit is received, and the voter in inactive status will be canceled after 2 federal general elections, which is 4 years. And any voter that is placed in the inactive status will not be mailed a ballot. So no later than October 7th of this year, the Register of Voters will begin mailing each registered voter a vote-by-mail ballot. So that was established by Assembly Bill 37, which was signed by Governor Newsom in 2021, which mandates that every active registered voter in California will be mailed a ballot. A voter who is eligible to register but in the military, living abroad, or temporary living outside of California can request special absentee ballots. So like Art said, that would be your college students or anyone who plans to return to California and has California as their home state. Okay. So the Help America Vote Act, also called HAVA, was passed in 2002 in response to Bush v. Gore and primarily functions as a funding mechanism for elections in the country to modernize away from punch cards and to mechanical ballot marking. It also established a Federal Assistance Commission, and Section 301 discusses general and minimum voting system standards and leaves it to the states to promulgate their own rules and further certification, as Art touched on the certification process within our state. So HAVA Section 303 requires that each state to have a centralized computerized voter registration list, which shall serve as the official voter registration list. Ours is VoteCal. The list must be reviewed on a regular basis using a reasonable effort to remove registrants who are ineligible to vote. List maintenance shall be conducted to ensure the name of each registered voter appears on the list, only voters who are not registered or who are not eligible to vote are removed, and duplicate names are eliminated. So consistent with the National Voter Registration Act, as well as the Elections Code, no registrant may be removed solely for a reason of a failure to vote. Removal permitted when registrants have not responded to a notice and who have not voted in 2 consecutive general elections for federal office. So minimum standards for accuracy of state voter registration lists are set by each state. And that is all County Council has. Thank you.
Okay, we are now at, public comment. And Mr. Perez, you were going to read off the names?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll go ahead and read out the, first of all, we have 17 speakers. Has anybody else filled out a comment card that has not been received? Thank you. So we have 17 speakers for public comment, and first speaker is Yvonne Mendez, to be followed by Jim Niederrecker.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for allowing us to speak today. I'm here I've lived in California since 1987. And I came from Ohio, where I had to show my driver's license and vote, and what an honor it was to place my vote back in 1979. There is some concerns I have. I worked the preliminary voting in Jurupa. I was asked from the moment I walked in that voting center, I was told that I could not wear red, white, and blue when I entered that center. That was one. 2, I brought all my red, white, and blue stuff. I'm a patriot and I love to decorate. I was told I could not decorate. I did it anyways. So there was a lead gentleman there who said, Yvonne, I love what you're doing. I put the American flags out. But from the moment I worked in that center, I was excited and ecstatic to be there and was told I was harassed. I actually reported that person. So I wanted you to know that. I actually went to Karen and she took care of it. So thank you for that. Recently, I was asked to challenge 2,000 votes on the VOR, the voter integrity, True the Vote. Out of those 2,000 votes, I'm going to use my example. So I challenged 2,000 votes. I noticed here that you had, I don't know how many registered voters in Riverside County, but it is critical because I'm going to give my example. When I went to go vote in the preliminary, I received 2 ballots in the mail. I've been married twice. So one said Yvonne Mendez, and another one said Yvonne Cavillo Mendez. So that is an issue for me. I'm only registered as Yvonne Cavillo Mendez. I registered in 1987 when I moved here. And just yesterday, I went and pulled my information, and it said that I was registered to vote as of January 24th, 2024. and that I hadn't voted. And I know I've voted in every election here. So this is a concern for me, myself. Now, in doing the challenges in the True the Vote, they said that there were 7,395 registered voters in Riverside County that do not live in our county. So we're given the name, and I started looking on Google Map because it had an address. And I can't give you any examples because I signed a confidential thing that I would not copy anything, and I didn't. But I looked at the addresses. There was people registered to vote in Riverside County that have addresses in Ohio, Texas, Michigan, and their post office boxes. So when you go pull them up, there is nothing there. So when we talk about every vote counts, we want it to count, but is it a legal vote? So anyways, I just wanted you to know that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Jim Niederrecker, to be followed by Sherry Franklin.
Good afternoon. My name's Jim Niederrecker. When we talked about a workshop, I was praying it would be dialogue, but apparently I'm talking to you. Maybe there'll be some dialogue later. So I'm disappointed with that, but I'm happy we're here, so that's good. The other thing is that it took 2 years to get here. So this is moving at a snail's pace. We got to pick it up. I want to talk about voter roll cleanup. So Art, good presentation. Thank you. I can think of a dozen questions I've got for you and Matt, and some of them I've already mailed to you based on what you said. So there's some more room for improvement. As far as the voter rolls, I've shared with you that the voter rolls are inaccurate, and I've provided data for you, and I can provide that again. Matt got a series of questions related to the voter rolls. He gave us a prompt reply, so it's very good. And now I've replied back to Matt. I gave him 6 ideas on other ways to go clean up the rolls. And then I added 2 more questions, so I'm anticipating Matt will take a look at that and we can have some more dialogue. You've only got 3 weeks or so before you're going to lock those rolls and start the process of creating the list of who will get vote by mail ballots. It took you 6 months to get the experience piece done. My flat out comment is there hasn't been any sense of urgency to fix the rolls. We know that there are illegal registrants on those rolls. And so there's actually a method that you could use that I invite you to do. The Naturalization Service Agency has a database that lists who's eligible and who is not. And you could take your database and you could compare it to that one, and you could identify potential illegal aliens that have registered. And you could do that by looking at your current database where the place of birth is either USA, California, or some other state. And that would be a great way to go figure out where the illegal registrants are at. The Heritage Foundation did a audit. They talked to strictly illegal immigrants, and we've got 12 million plus, whatever, in the last 3.5 years. And those folks that are here illegally, 10% of them said they registered across the U.S. So we've got an issue, and you got very little time to go scrub the database. And if that database is as bad as I think it is, when it comes to certifying the election in November, you're not going to be able to do it because you can't say that the election was accurate. And time's up. I just wanted to give a shout out to Elizabeth. She's been a great resource. So she gets a big atta girl. And I had one more thing I wanted to throw out, so thank you for giving me a couple seconds here. As far as the equipment goes, you described that there were 3 ways that the equipment was certified, but your equipment, I am very confident in saying it doesn't meet critical infrastructure requirements. I'm going to give you a paper that describes how I came to that conclusion. I'm praying you take a look at it. It's not your fault. The state has ignored critical infrastructure. So you say you're not on the internet, but you really don't know that you are or you're not. Thanks for your time. Jim Niederrecker.
Those questions that you mentioned earlier, can I get those questions as well?
I could, when I get home, I could type up 10 or 12 of them and send them in. Some of them are on the list that I already sent to Matt.
Those are the ones I'm referring to.
Yeah, I'd be happy to type those up and send them
If
in.
you don't mind just sending them in, that'd be great.
You said fine. I'll get them to him if you send them to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next is Sherry Franklin, to be followed by Shelby Bunch.
Sorry. Hello. Hi. Okay. I'm here to express my deep concern about the increasing sophistication of forgery in the election process, and to propose a critical enhancement to our current systems to ensure the integrity of our democratic process before the general election in November. There are new systems that can make dramatic improvements in fraud detection when automated technologies are employed. They are not only efficient, but also scalable, providing a significant boost to the reliability of processes where precision and trust are paramount. Given the importance of our elections and the need to protect every citizen's vote, I urge you to consider adopting advanced forgery protection technologies in our county's election process. Many counties already use these technologies. Automated systems such as AI-driven signature verification have proven highly effective in identifying inconsistencies and preventing fraudulent activities. So by implementing such technologies, we would be taking a proactive step towards safeguarding our elections. And considering every voter is now an absentee voter, we must raise our regulatory standards. Over 90% of ballots are coming through the mail. The USPS is now responsible for that chain of custody, and all of these ballots must be reviewed for signature verification. This has been a huge issue in our county over the last several years. And as recommended in the ROV's audit last year, this would be an easy process to improve the reputation of our county's election integrity. If you're not able to adopt these automated technologies, I urge you to revise our current statutory regulations, as outlined earlier by Stephanie Nelson. The bar to accept the signature is very, very low. There's nothing to preclude the Board of Supervisors from increasing the requirements to accept these signatures. Currently, the ROV only checks for forgery through human observation, and I urge you to mandate their use of these higher regulations to ensure our county sets higher standards for election security and serves as a model for others to follow. So increasing the detection of forgery is not just about preventing fraud, it's about preserving the public's trust in our electoral system. With the growing concerns around election security, Riverside County has waited too long, as Jim mentioned, and this is time to act decisively, preferably before this general election. I'd be more than happy to discuss this further, as I've already provided a policy to improve the current standards to Supervisor Spiegel. It's simple for our manual verification to increase those standards since the bar is so low. I can provide any additional information or resources you might need. And I am out of time. I had some other questions. Can I? I'd like an explanation on the hundreds of EMS messages that are not been corrected through the databases. There's 157 that have been on the database correction list for over a year. I don't understand that. And then it seems that the ROV is here to defend their processes and try to prove how their systems are working instead of discussing the weaknesses that need help. Sorry. Last thing, Art, when you said you are going above and beyond by using Experian, you wouldn't need Experian if the current processes were working. Thank you.
well, and also the policy. Please submit them there to your right, please. Thank you.
Should be bunched to be followed by Greg Langworthy.
What was her name?
Okay, I also thought this was going to be a back and forth, and I'm very, very disappointed. It's taken so long to get here, and this is just like being at our regular meetings. Anyway, when Art talks about the regulations, as far as keeping the rolls in check, those are meant for authentic voters. You should have already made sure when you came in as registrar of voters, you should have started on day one. You say you're getting all these daily dumps. If you guys are getting daily dumps, why aren't these rolls, why isn't there a team that's addressing these voter rolls? You talk about, oh, I'm sorry, I feel like you can't hear, I'm deaf.
You sound like you're attacking him, and I don't want that to happen.
Direct it to us.
Yeah, direct us.
I apologize. When Art showed on the screen that only the 16 and 17-year-olds can pre-register, but they cannot be made active in the rolls. I have hundreds of 16 and 17-year-olds that are all active within the rolls. Experian can't clean that. Those are things that should have already been addressed. And that's straight from the Secretary of State website. And Art read it also on his presentation, that they are not allowed to be made active until they turn 18. They're all throughout our rolls, and they're all active. So those are things that should have already been addressed. Also, too, I asked Matt, and Matt was not able to or was confused by my question. We have so many people that their updated registration is earlier, 4/16, when their original registration date is 4/24. How is an updated registration earlier than the original registration date? These are just a few things that I'm finding in the rolls. So when you look at all the laws, the state laws and the federal laws, it states that we cannot conduct elections without the rolls being pristine. And we've got lawsuits that are now currently being filed because they're wanting to put injunctions on using these rolls. In Florida, we have Judicial Watch just filed a lawsuit in California because the rolls, they're a mess. How can we certify elections when we're starting with rolls that are an absolute mess? Now, Art's presentation makes everything look really nice. I sit for hours and hours and hours for months going through the current rolls. It's not nice. It looks good, but we've got a mess. And to all of a sudden now want to use Experian, all this stuff, all the laws, the state and federal laws say that the rolls have to be clean before we conduct an election. It's very clearly stated. I have all this paperwork that I will give you. I used all my ink and all my paper, and I printed all these things because I thought we were going to talk about it succinctly and that there's going to be an answer. But it's always the same thing. Art should have been doing this prior. And if I'm frustrated, there's a reason. I've got my grandbabies to protect. I don't mean to attack Art. I already told Art and Matt they were given an elephant. It's too big to address, and they admitted to me that it is. But I just also want to state that Steph, Art, Matt, and other people that were in the last meeting I was in with them, they all agreed that they were afraid to tell you guys they can't do anything. They're just government employees, and that you guys wouldn't listen to them anyway. That doesn't make me feel confident, or any of the other citizens. Yes, that is verbatim. Steph said it at the end of the table, and everyone agreed.
Do you agree with that? Does anyone here feel that way?
That's the truth. I'm not trying to harm anybody, but I'm not a liar. I've been doing this for 4 years. I'm not a liar.
Well, I've been doing this for many more years as well, ma'am. I'm trying to figure out what you just said right now.
And I have a witness.
And if someone said that, I want to know who it is.
Steph said it. Art and Matt agreed with it, along with all the other people that are at that
Okay,
table.
we'll look into it now that you said it. Thank you.
And I have a witness that was with me. Thank you.
Taryn Cagliero.
All right, well, thank you for hosting this, really appreciate it. It's good to see you, Supervisor Perez. Thank you for taking the time. And Karen Spiegel for heading this up, really appreciate it. So what my comment is I want to give you a little history of how our group got involved with election integrity. It really goes back to the election in 2022. And that's where our friend Yvette Anthony did a audit on her own time with the receipts, ballot receipts from the 2022 election, and she compared those ballot receipts, you know, she counted them up, came up with a total, and compared that total with the machine count. And because that total was off so much, you know, thousands of votes, she posed the question to us, how did that happen? And it took, to be honest, it took a while for Yvette to get it clear in my mind what she was talking about, because I was kind of new to this. So we kind of made a picture of it, which you've probably seen, and then we took that to Supervisor Jeffries, and Art and Matt were good enough to come. And at that meeting in November of last year, Supervisor Jeffries asked Art and Matt, well, give an explanation. How come this doesn't seem to reconcile? So after that meeting, we met a couple more times with Matt and Art in the ROV to try to get a understanding of, well, how do you reconcile? How do you reconcile the number of ballots that you can justify by ballot receipts, ballot statements, post office receipts? How do you add them up? So we came up with a formula, which Matt did agree with. He said, well, what you do is you count the ballots from the post office, the ballots from the vote centers, and the ballots from the drop boxes. You add up those three numbers together and you reconcile, see if it matches the machine count. So with that information in mind, we went to the recall election and we said, well, let's try this process with a small election. It's only 10,000. It's a lot tougher with the bigger election. So we did it. This is the result of that audit. And we only got it done recently. It takes time. And that's what I'm going to admit for you guys. This is not easy to do. But we did it for the recall. We gave it to Art and Matt and Elizabeth. Elizabeth, again, is the key to this. If she doesn't give us the information, we can't do it. But she has, and she's been very diligent. So now it's in their court, and I want them to go through it and say, are our numbers correct? Because it didn't reconcile in the recall election. And so now what we're in the process of doing is using the same system in the March primary and then in the 2022 election, which is where Yvette found such large discrepancies. And we're trying to get the election system out of the realm of suspicion into the realm of facts. Because in an election, there's only three things. You've got voters, votes, and count. Voters has to be eligible. That's where the voter roll comes in. Votes is the ballots. You're only supposed to send ballots out to eligible voters. That's why the voter roll is key. You don't want ineligible voters on the voter roll because you've just corrupted the election. You just sent ballots out to people who are not eligible to vote. And then count, does the machine count correctly? That's been a big question. In doing this, I think takes the count out of the realm of suspicion because we're just like balancing the checkbook. It's not always easy to do, but you got to do it. And so that's what we've tried to do. We've tried to get the election system out of the realm of suspicion into the realm of fact, realizing the difficulty of this work. And it is not easy, and it's kind of tedious, but I think this is where we want to present information to you. This is why we question the system. Right now, it's not reconciling, recognizing the tough work that Art and Matt have in doing this. So that's why we've made some suggestions. Maybe the accountants for the county can help them. Maybe the Division of Weights and Measures can be in charge of the machines. So we've made suggestions because of the things we found out. Okay, you're welcome.
And you're going to get that copy. Does Art have it already?
Yeah, Art has a copy of this. We just delivered it only last Friday, so I doubt he's had a chance to look at it.
So I don't have one, so it's not in my hands.
Yep.
I'll talk to Art and see how it goes. Thank you for doing that. And Yvette.
Next speaker is Karen Cagliaro, to be followed by Joseph Cagliaro.
Thank you. I want to thank you guys again for allowing us to come to this. It's taken a while, but we appreciate you taking the time to listen to us. So I'm coming again as a concerned citizen of Riverside County, basically following what my colleagues have already gone over a bit. My question is, how do we come together as citizens and ROV and Board of Supervisors to be able to give an element of security for the public in our election system? And right now, we are not quite there. Thank you, Art, for your presentation. But the words you used were potential or potentially, and also still working on the process. And those leave doubt in the minds of the voters still. And I understand you're working on the process, but it still is we're in a huge void still. The chain of custody at the post office is a huge concern for the public. Since we're not allowed to go into the post office or the ROV is not allowed to conduct a chain of custody for oversight of the ballots inside the post office, that still leaves doubt for the public. Accurate voter rolls, again, we haven't achieved that. It's not all your fault, obviously, but there still needs to be a reconciliation with this and make sure that we have it and it's secure. Because until we have that, we will not have secure voter elections, and the public is aware of this, and people doubt. Accurate voting machines. I was an election officer for several of the elections, and I have to say that it ran like clockwork in our area, but the machines, we were not allowed to even check or verify, so we're not allowed to examine them. How do we know that they're not, being having a hiccup or having a problem or going online? Because there has been things that have come up that people have brought this to the attention of even us at the election integrity team. So reconciling the ballots and making sure that the ballots counted are accurate, we haven't achieved this. This also is leaving doubt. And then lastly, enforcing the constitutional law regarding our elections, we recommend that the ROV work with law enforcement to ensure that the election laws are followed through. Non-citizens voting or being allowed to vote, or there's rumor that they have been able to vote through the DMV or other areas, this leaves doubt. So if we cannot get this election right, I'm going to say, and this is a heavy lift, and I know it will not happen probably, but I'm going to say we go back to same-day voting, voter ID, and paper ballots. Thank you.
Joseph Cagliaro, to be followed by CC.
Hello, everyone. I'm Joseph Cagliaro, and I live over in Hemet. I've lived in Riverside County all my life. I started voting when I was 18. I think I've voted in every election since. I just feel like lately previously I always felt confident in my votes and in integrity of our elections. But the last few years, I've felt like, especially ever since the pandemic years, when they started to all mail ballots and everything, I don't feel confident in our elections, and I question election integrity. An example being, earlier this year, a friend of mine, he's also a business owner in Riverside County as I am, so I know I can rely on what he said. He told me that he had voted in the primaries earlier this year, and when he went to the voting center, they told him that him and his wife went in and they told him, no, your votes have already been cast. And he said, no, they haven't. We're here and we haven't cast our votes yet, And so they did take care of him and let him cast his votes, but they didn't tell him what happened to the votes that were cast in his name previously, so I'm wondering what happened to those. But that's just an example. That's why all of us are questioning election integrity, because we all have experiences, a lot of us firsthand like this, why, that there is something going on and we don't know why, I very strongly feel that we should get back to how things were before the pandemic, which it was that way for years and years and years, ever since I can remember. When I was 18, you'd vote on one day. If you voted beforehand, you could request a ballot by mail, absentee ballot, but you had to request it. And then everybody voted on the one day. And I strongly feel also that we should go back to paper ballots and do the one-day voting. And why are we doing this? I don't understand. Because of the pandemic's over. Why are we still using this method that doesn't make sense? I also, also I can remember when the electronic machines first came out, and I don't remember when it was. I think it was in the late 80s or the early 90s or something. And at the time they had it in the news how much they cost, and I was thinking, my gosh, these things cost a fortune. It was like thousands of dollars. Then I was thinking, do we really need these? Can't we just use the paper ballots? And isn't that sufficient to save all this money? And now, I know you said, you did a presentation, I appreciate that, and you said that they, they're not connected to the internet, but what happens at the ROV headquarters and past that? Are they connected to the internet past that? I'm not sure. We're all wondering that, and it doesn't seem like anybody can check that. So anyway, thank you for your time, and thank you for having this meeting today. Okay.
CC to be followed by Debbie Walsh.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity for this meeting as well, but I do have reservations as week after week, month after month, year after year, the citizens behind me have presented substantial evidence highlighting significant issues and failures in the election process. Unfortunately, our concerns have often been disregarded or suppressed. Now, with only 85 days left until the 2024 presidential election, we are finally granted the public forum for election integrity that we've been requesting for months. Well, I wanted to talk about two things, but now that we only have limited time, I'm going to talk about how processes may not work. It's regarding the seal logs. I took a passion in the seal logs for these machines. The seals are a tamper-evident security seal on those machines that kind of ensures the integrity of them and shows that they weren't tampered with. So I did a PRA request, and I only asked for 6 sites, but I ended up getting 146. So I went through the ballot scanner logs, and Karen, you have several of them, and you have some that are the most egregious. And I just have to ask, is there any election official that actually looks over these documents? Because they are horrendous. And this gives me absolutely no confidence in these machines where people are voting and scanning their ballot from and using the ballot marker or any of the other devices within that voting center. It gives me absolutely no confidence and assurity that my vote is counting and that it hasn't been tampered with. So do you have some of those you can show? Well, I can hold one up. One. Okay. So the ballot scanner security log is a super simple, easy form to fill out. It really doesn't require very much thought about it. It just requires a little bit of training. And so there's no reason that these logs should not be filled out. Absolutely none. And this is part of our chain of custody. Integral part to the whole process. And if we can't fill out sections or we don't have reasonable explanations for why we had to replace the seal, all of that should be documented on a report. I have numerous ones after numerous ones of things not filled out, times wonky, so many things I can go through quickly, but this is egregious and it's horrible. It's horrible documentation, and I expected more, and I got a lot less. And I think the citizens need to know who sees these documents after they're brought back, or the voting center ends for the night. Who sees these documents and signs off on them? Because anybody would not want to put their signature to these documents. At least I would not want to. The next thing I want to talk about is CrowdStrike.
Pull it back because we're going to run out of time.
All right, well, we can't talk about CrowdStrike, but other than if I just ask you the few questions at the end is, will our register of voters be adequately prepared to handle these increasing threats and risks to our voting process by implementing a solid contingency plan on hand counting paper ballots? And will our register of voters commit to training personnel on hand counting ballots in the event that we have an episode like what happened with CrowdStrike?
Thank you.
Debbie Walsh to be followed by Veronica Langworthy.
Prepared to make a speech, but I'll try to go through it real quick. As a candidate for the 2024 primary on March 27th, 2004, me and my sister actually came to the Register of Voters, and we observed ballots at the ROV, postmarked on March 5th, 2024. They were in an office, and we were allowed to see some of them, and they were shown that they were postmarked on March the 5th. The ballots were stated by one of the employees as arriving on time, but they were not counted. They were not going to be counted because they were said to be arriving late. So I wasn't really convinced that that happened with these ballots. First of all, why were they in somebody's office? And the room that we had been in before to take the tour, where they had all the people that were, the signatures were being checked, nothing was happening there. Actually, nobody was there. And so that was another concern. Why weren't they checking the signatures at that point? Because the election was still going on. So anyway, that was one of the things we observed. I'm not going to talk like everybody else forever and ever, but I went down to the post office on Chicago. That's where the ballots go through. They have the ROV has their post office box there. So that's where the ballots will be coming through. They're quite a few different employees I talked to said that they came in on time. They contacted ROV. They came and they picked up the ballots several times during the day. There was no late ballots. They were pretty adamant about it, and I talked to quite a few employees, but I could never get the post office to give us any information. So we were kind of at a stalemate there as a person was a candidate. But on the Tuesday after that, I came to the Board of Supervisors. My sister came, and I talked to you guys about that. And was Art who said there was 5,000 ballots that that's what he was saying. 5,000 ballots that came in on time, postmarked the 5th, but were not counted because they were late. And so that was a big concern I had. I'm sure it wasn't exactly 5,000, but that's what he came up with. So then when they came to time to go to the, basically the press, I think they said there was only 31. So 5,031, big discrepancy. And how many were actually in that room? I didn't count them, of course, but we just observed them, me and my sister. So that was a big concern. All these ballots, we don't even know how many, came in on time and were said to be late. Thank you.
Veronica Langworthy to be followed by Pablo Hernandez.
Good afternoon, supervisors and staff. I am Veronica Langworthy, and I just am concerned that as a citizen and you as candidate, as representatives, that our vote counts. We get this in the mail. We get our, voter information guide, and it used to have the location of our vote center down at the bottom, and you knew where the heck to go on what day to go cast your ballot. Now it says, oh, look inside or go online, which inside, the print is so small, you need a magnifying glass. So this is not simple. It is not accessible. I had people calling me on election day saying, hey, I think I'm going to go vote tomorrow. And it's like, no, you got to turn it in today or it's not going to count. And so this has become confusing. They can vote anytime, anywhere. And I don't trust the mail. I have mail issue trust because I've had a bill that I've sent into my bank and it didn't get there. It went into somebody else's mailbox. So I do not trust the post office to deliver our ballots to the ROV in a timely manner. So I would not use that. I think going back to simple, the Secretary of State paid for a UCLA study about equity and accessibility, and they say they trust people, trust your neighbors. Go back to precincts. The data, when I look at the ballot statements, when I look at vote by mail center data, it shows that there are not people showing up at those centers when they're open. You're spending a lot of money to have people staff these vote centers for multiple days. And it's going down the tubes because nobody's showing up at there. They're either not voting or mailing in or showing up, at the very last minute. So that money could be better spent having the precincts open, go to the neighborhood. And then you might be wondering why I said 2 on a scale of 1 to 5, confidence. This binder here is public records request. Thank you to Elizabeth for this information. These are just tabulator tapes. The green ones are tabulator tapes from vote centers, not precincts, vote centers that the actual count, total cast matched the total voters, and it was signed by 4 election officials at that vote center on election day. The polls were closed. These yellow tags here with a W means that they didn't know how to close the machine, the tabulator machine at the vote center, and it was actually closed on Wednesday. And some of these don't have signatures from the elections officials that served at the vote centers. So there are very few that are done properly. And then I also requested the vote by mail collection forms copy for those drop boxes. And standard operating procedure was an issue that was brought up in the assessment report that you guys had requested and paid for with county tax, with our tax dollars. And they were provided. And sometimes I got, some of the scanned files were pink NCRs, some were yellow NCRs. There were very few that were the white originals. And so most of these were difficult to see, to read, because they're NCRs rather than the original page. The majority were incomplete forms. They were not signed, they were not stamped as to when they were received at the ROV. And so this is just a visual for some of the data. I don't have all the numbers compiled because I don't work full-time on this. It's not my job. But I am spending my fun time doing this besides doing my other responsibilities. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and the clock's behind me, so I just didn't see it. But yeah, so encourage the county to push back against Sacramento, because what we've gotten from what Secretary of State Padilla did, pushing down about decertifying, created havoc for us. Decisions were made hastily. We've had time to see it. And it's time to push back to Sacramento and do what works for the citizens of Riverside County and for us as a community. So thank you.
Pablo Hernandez to be followed by Bob Gilbert.
Good afternoon, supervisors. And I want to thank you mainly, ma'am, doing a great job. I didn't know you. You were conservative, but you're more conservative than I thought, so I thank you. I give you a salute. I served in the military for 38 years. And yes, I'm talking about voting by mail. When I was on active duty, I used to vote by mail. Yeah, because I couldn't come up, over 5,000 miles away from home, okay? So that's fine. But the thing is, I tell you all over here, we got to do the right thing. Be honest, be good, because God is watching us for good things that we do. He's got a book on all of us. He's going to judge us. When judgment day comes, we're going to face God, okay? And if you do right, God will most likely will forgive you a little things that you do bad, okay? But do the right thing. Y tú, Mr. Perez, usted, well, okay, bueno, yo también, yo soy mayor que usted.
Por eso se habla usted.
Okay, bueno, tú también, haga las cosas bien, okay?
Hay que ser responsable.
La cosa es que, you know, you have to do the right thing.
That's correct.
All these, okay, I was stationed at Edwards Air Force Base, okay? And I got out and I moved over here to San Jacinto, Riverside County, to 2012. And then I had voted over there when I was stationed at Edwards Air Force Base. But in 2016, I got my registration to vote by mail. Not only I got 2, I got 4 more registration. I said, what the heck, what is this? It's only 4 of us. I got 8 in total, okay? The thing is, I took it over to the post office, turned it in, thinking that they're gonna do the right thing. And I found out later on that the post office, what they do is get these ballots that I got turned into them, they send it to the DNC, and the DNC start registering, putting, oh yeah, more vote for us. Okay? Oh yeah, that happened in 2016. And then in 2020, oh, I go to vote, and they tell me, oh, you already, I got one ahead of them. I have my ballot by mail, took it with me, and I go, hey, I like to register to vote. Oh, they say no. I go, can I show my ID card? Oh, no, you don't need to. Yeah, well, you go to the liquor store, you go to fly on a plane, you got to show ID card. How can you not show ID card when you're voting? That's the most prejudice. Like I say, I voted.
You're illegal.
Yes. I served in the military for 38 years, so we can have a right, our freedom. And they're telling me, no, I demand, I want to show my ID, show them, yes, I'm going to vote. Well, after all that, things that I went through, all that trouble, showing them my ID, and finally they say, oh, well, Mr. Hernandez, you cannot vote. You already vote. Really? I go, here, I had not vote. You liar. They lie. Okay? Can you explain that to me? Why did they do that? Okay? And this is going on. And I'm Hispanic. I talk to a lot of Hispanic people, okay? And they tell me, oh, and they're here illegally, okay? And say, oh, yo voy a votar porque yo no tengo nada, pero me van a dar dinero. Say that, they're going to vote because they're going to get paid to vote. And these are called, and I'm sorry to call them what they are criminals, illegal wetbacks.
Somebody's using that word. Somebody's using that word, sir. That's derogatory.
That's not what they are. No, I don't sugarcoat nothing. I tell it like it is. Oh, well, yeah.
Thank you, Pablo.
Thank you.
Who's
You're very
next?
animated, Pablo.
He was fine, then he said wetback.
Bob Gilbert to be followed by Greg Tabor.
Thank you. And I thank you folks for putting this meeting together. I am disturbed that we didn't have more time for the folks that have spent so much time having a presentation. Maybe just half the time, that give us half the time to be able to interact with you and get the answers more and get some action on this. We feel like the multiple times that we've been up here and given 2 or 3 minutes, it just gets shoved under the rug again. So I am disturbed very much by not just what happens in Riverside County, but throughout our entire nation, the corruption that takes place. And it reflects onto right here in Riverside County, too. There's so much corruption. And yeah, we are being taken over. There's been such fraudulent elections that somehow have been certified. Folks, we all need to look at that, not just at the folks that are signing our paychecks. We need to be looking at the salvation of this nation. We are in deep peril. I know that. I know you don't know much about me, but I know that we are in deep peril. Our world's in peril right now. Again, we want to see some action. We don't want to just get up here and give 3 minutes. I'd gladly give my 3 minutes. I'd give my all my time to somebody like Shelby, that she's been spending weeks and months preparing for this. And you gave her 3 plus maybe another minute. You need to really, not just listen, we need to put this to action, big time. I got so much more I could say, but it's we the people. Yes. We've got people back here that are just representing the millions of Americans that want to see America come back to honest elections. It's not just every vote counts. I've seen that. There's been so many fraudulent votes that have taken place. And that goes onto your plate, basically. Fraudulent votes should be prosecuted and punished. No, actually, the folks behind that make those fraudulent votes take place need to be prosecuted and punished. Not just the little illegals that were told that they would get all these wonderful things from the government if they voted Democrat. Well, you know what I'm talking about. Anyhow, I guess my time is about up.
You got 20 seconds.
Folks, give her more time. Give Shelby more time.
Greg Tabor to be followed by Glenn Stoll.
Good afternoon, supervisors and committee. I've been doing this stuff since Barbara Dunmore was the ROV, probably a long time. And I know a lot of you might not believe me, but Ms. Spencer and Mr. Tanako have made considerable improvements in the system. But there is still more work to be done. In comparing the suggested template that the Secretary of State Weber's office sent out to 124 for the election observer guidelines, I noticed that the ROV's office had inserted a line not present in the template. In the paragraph outlining observers may not is inserted, quote, use cellular phones, pagers, or two-way radios inside the polling place or within 100 feet of the entrance to the polling place. There's many tickets. There's printouts that are posted at the doorway of the polling place. And if that prohibition on, it makes it a lot harder for observers to record what the tickets are saying. And as I said, it's something that Riverside County came up with that's not in this Secretary of State's template. Per the FBI and CISA, they're suggesting using the ROV uses a URL for their website of a .gov. And I mentioned this to the staff in February. They said they couldn't possibly do it by the March primary, but it hasn't happened yet, and we're running out of time. And this is very important to keep, to let people know that they're looking at a legitimate government website, not a false website. I've made the suggestion to the staff before to post all records request responses. Once they've filled the records request response for one party, post it on the website, like a frequently asked questions. That cuts down on their work. It makes it easier for the observers. You could do stuff like lists of precincts, the policy and procedure manuals, so that observers have an idea what the policy is supposed to be, so they can make sure that the staff is following the procedure. You could even use that for the audit log files. And just wanted, again, to express my appreciation and tell you there have been huge strides made in the process. So thank you for your time.
Glenn Stoll to be followed by Brian Kerr.
Who's this?
Glenn Stoll. Okay, thank you. Brian Kerr then, to be followed by Tim Smith.
Hi there, Brian Kerr. First off, I took a tour of the ROV, which was very informative. They did a great job, but it did open up a whole lot of questions. And several people have talked about this, about the post office. So I don't like to take the word no for an answer. So I went down to Chicago and asked them if I could see how the ballots were handled. I said, if I drop my ballot in the mailbox, where does it go? What happens to it? I was told one thing, and I said, great, can I have a tour of the back to see that happening? Went back, talked to a supervisor, came back and told me, oh, I was wrong. What I told you didn't happen. This is what happens. And I said, well, can I talk to the supervisor? No. So then they said, you can write the postmaster. So I wrote the postmaster. They said, no, we follow the law. That's all you need to know. So then I wrote Congressman Calvert. He said, I'll write a letter. He wrote a letter. They wrote him a letter back. We follow the law. No tour. I sent dropped a letter off for Congressman Takano. Haven't heard back. Riverside has a new postmaster. I sent him a letter saying, I just want to know where my ballot goes. No response. Talked to Art in several meetings, talked to Supervisor Washington and Jeffries, and they said, we don't control the post office. Then my suggestion is fire the post office. Yeah. Put ballot boxes and make people drop their ballots off. Because no one knows what happens to your ballot. No one knows where it goes. I mean, once it gets to the ROV, they have a chain of custody. Up until then, I can do anything I want in the post office. And no one knows anything. So my suggestion is you guys demand a tour of the post office and show us how it's handled. We still don't know if the post office weighs the ballots or counts the ballots, because we've gotten both answers. And then on signature verification, there's software out there with AI. It will verify signatures 1 per second. You can adjust the flow from let anything go. If they put a scratch, it's good, to 10, it's got to be perfect. My suggestion would be set it for a 5. Art said he's got someone coming in to train his verification. That'd wipe out half the ballots because 5 would clear them. Then his people can focus on the ones that might be off. Then we have human interaction and we're not dependent on the client. I've got some information, I don't know if someone wants it, but it's a white paper on it, and then it's a case study for Colorado with verification. Yep, thank you.
Followed by Sonia Perez.
What Smith?
Tim Smith.
Tim Smith.
Yeah.
Hello. I have here on my phone a picture from outside this room that says Election Integrity Workshop. Okay, that's what we thought we were coming to, so that these people have worked their butt off. Look at the stacks of these papers. Can you hold them up? Hold them up. There's so much work here. And we were going to educate the citizens, and you guys were going to listen in about what's going on. And instead, you've turned this into basically the same thing we do at a supervisor meeting, and you're being a little nicer with the clock. This is false advertising. This is not what you represented that we would do today. And it's not moving the needle, all right? It's not. We need you to move the needle. So, if I keep talking for my remaining 2 minutes, I'm gonna do 2 things. I'm gonna prick your conscience, and I'm gonna kick your butt, all right? But I would rather give the time to the people with the facts that you need to hear. Because we can talk rhetoric, and you guys are politicians. You can stump speech and do all kinds of sounding good, right? You know what but that doesn't do anything. It's hot air. These are facts, and we have an election coming up that we don't trust in this county. And you guys are not showing any spine that you're actually going to do anything if there's real fraud. So look at the facts. Can I have Shelby come and speak, or Kathy? No? No. Okay. Notice that. It says election integrity workshop outside. And I'm being blocked. She is saying, nope, 3 minutes, you can kick our butt, you can blow hot air, you can do all this, right?
Already, I have all the stuff that they've given.
The citizens have it. The citizens
Okay.
have it. The citizens haven't heard these things. I have people in this room who have never come to a meeting like this, and I have pled with them and begged them to be here today so they could see the facts of the fraud and the concern that we have. Yes. And they came off work and they helped fill this room, and you're not letting them hear. Yes. You know it. You know the facts. You know what you've heard from Shelby and all these people, and they don't know it. And they're your constituents.
And, and I understand the difference of interpretation. But when you include supervisors and our county staff, you're sharing the information with us. And we are both taking copious notes.
This is a workshop for the citizens.
Not if,
and if it's a workshop for you,
okay.
You're not even letting them present it. So Mr. Perez wasn't in your meeting. He hasn't even heard what you heard in your other meeting.
No.
Right? So this is a workshop for him to be educated.
And I'm actually being educated now.
Well, not very well, because we're cut off for 3 minutes.
No, enough. Because I got a lot of points here that I'm going to follow up with.
I don't buy it. I think we're hot air. This is not a workshop with a 3-minute timer for people to speak. We don't know the order we're supposed to speak in, with just the order we turned our card in. These people planned to be able to speak and present and make a case. You gave Art, how long? 20 minutes to talk, go through a whole presentation, and we can't do that? My time's at 0. I bet you're glad I'm going to stop talking.
Sonia Perez, to be followed by Gary Mock.
Good afternoon. I'm in agreement with what he said and she said. I have a question. Are the voting certification equipment that Art presented in the slides the same equipment from former elections? Question number 1. But if we were having Q&As, I would get the answer, but we don't have that. How are voters checking in? Are the election team vetting their party affiliations, that they are documented citizens and not illegal immigrants? And if so, what is that process? Several people use P.O. boxes as a mailing address, so they could live in another county, city, or even a state. How can you hear back from a deceased person or a person who's moved out of the state altogether? Because Art was saying, if we don't get them back, then, they're just, it's a third-party voter. But if they died, how are they going to answer you? If they moved out of state and they're not getting the mail, how are you going to answer them? Okay, and then why was such a small room reserved for a voter integrity workshop? I mean, there's hundreds and thousands of voters. Did you really want to be transparent with a conference room that only fits approximately 70 visitors? This meeting seems like an appeasement for all the outcries of the people. Perhaps another invitation needs to occur so the voters and the registrars can get clarity on the process.
Gary Mock, and he will be our final speaker.
Okay. I'm Gary. Thank you for having me. How many people are there? The big part of the room over there, and this little tiny thing. Got all the people jammed in over there. Okay, what woke me up was the 2018 Orange County election. Everybody knows it was fraudulently stolen. It was obvious. Anybody that's got eyes to see, and I know all you guys in this room have eyes to see, including all of you. Something's amiss. When I went to 2020 to cast my ballot. I tried to give them my ID. I was at a vote center. First time I'd been to a vote center. And it was not a good experience. I was told I didn't need to show my ID. And I was told that by two women, a mother and a daughter, that were running the computers on that day, that they had good enough signature verification skills to know whether my signature was valid or not. And their main job, they raise chickens, and they have a little farm, they knit a lot and things like that. And the only time they verify signatures is once every 2 years. Those are signature experts. So they told me I didn't need. I was very upset about that. So I go out on the, so I figured, this looks suspicious. So I volunteered for the next vote cycle, and I worked at the center. And everything was set up pretty much the same as the 2020. I was in 2022 when I did it. And they kept track of everything by counting the unused paper, which I thought was kind of funny that we didn't do more physical counts until at the end, but that worked fine. The gals that hated it was like, the Thimble Club and Lions Club and all that kind of stuff with the people that we had there. And they hated counting paper. They said it. They hated counting paper. They would push all the voters to the automatic marking system, the touchpads, that something was not right about that. And I saw that as suspicious when I saw the QR codes printed out on the page. I'm thinking, QR code. So they're not scanning what's written on here, they're scanning that code. And I thought, So by the end of the day, I figured out, well, that's where the cheat was, at least in this particular aspect. And later, the Halderman report confirmed that. Anybody here know what the Halderman report is?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, we got plenty of people. All of you should know what the Halderman report is, because it talks about how the touchpads can be changed by anybody from any location, one or all of them. Okay, with the little card that I was given to open the machine, they use you can buy those cards online on Amazon, and you can use the same thing to cheat that code, okay? And the QR code does not have to match what the paper says on it. Or it could match, but they change one vote down low, like the sheriff or something like that, who's supposed to enforce all this stuff, okay? So anyways, we get to final vote day, and at the end of the shift, we counted the ballots, we counted all the leftover paper, and there was too many ballots to fit in the regular bag that they sent to seal up, so they had another box that we used also to put more ballots in. And all the seals were going on in the right place. I was checking, because I went there as a fact-finding mission to see what was going on. Well, at the end, they got us other box out, big cardboard box about this big, and it had a hole in it about that big on the side. And they stuck all the extra ballots in that. And they put the seals all over the top of the box, but they didn't do anything with that hole in the side. You could have stuck your arm in, you could have pulled ballots out, you could put more ballots in. There was it was corrupt, okay? And after spending enough time, then all that gets shoved in the back of the Riverside County SUV and gets brought to the vote center. Then I spent 4 days with these two gals who are running this from here, from the ROV, and you get to know people pretty easy, pretty quick. And I don't think there was a Democrat and a Republican that were keeping an eye on things. It appeared there was two Democrats who were keeping track of everything, and anything could have happened on the way between our vote center and ROV. And that beautiful presentation that was on here when I got in here, that was really fancy, but there was a lot of BS in there. Okay. I know you guys have heard this phrase before, lipstick on a pig, and that's what that was. Give Shelby more time.
Yeah.
One day.
Fair election. Same day.
Same day.
Same our money.
Must show ID card.
Yes. And I am a woman.
I cannot disagree with many of your points. I can't. But we, as you saw, and you will talk to anybody, and you would talk to any of your legislatures, did any of you reach out to any of our legislatures that represent our?
One person that I heard one.
I don't know who you talked to, because I've talked to quite a few, and that,
Doesn't respond. Calvert tried.
yes, and I talked to Congressman Calvert also. I talked to quite a few. And the challenge we have, whether we like it or not, the bottom line is so much of this is state and federal law. I was talking with Congressman Calvert, he'd love to do E-Verify, but it's not legal in California. Our biggest challenge as far as illegal, you can say as much as you want to say, but when they implemented the DMV, when you could just do that, there's no verification there. We can't, once they've done that and be issued at voting, that's issued by the state, not us. So we're still working on it. It's not a done deal. I don't know how much we can get done. I think Art's got his marching papers. I think all of us have been taking notes. No.
No.
Great. Excellent leadership.
You want to finish up your points?
I'm just going to try to respond.
You want to finish up your
If you
points?
guys want to shut me down, then I will peacefully comply with these.
You want to finish your points?
Art said he would answer some questions after his thing. Can we just have, I have a few questions about the rules. I need to understand why updated registrations are 414 and the original registration is 424. And then I'd also like to know why all of the 16 and 17-year-olds are active in our rolls. These are things that Art should have a team. They should have been working on all of this and making sure. The federal and state laws, they state that you have to clean our rolls. When Art is showing the election codes, those pertain to valid voters. That's what we're asking. We're asking you to follow state and federal law because you guys can't get sued. They can try and sue you, but it won't go through because you are showing, I've got all these codes and laws for you that are state and federal, according to our machine use and the rolls. If you guys do the right thing, dump these rolls, have everyone in Riverside County re-register, you can't get sued. We get a great election, and you guys can't get sued because of the state and federal laws, and I'll give these to you, Karen. So you guys can say to any of the legal people, any of the lawfare that come after you, we're going by this. These are state and federal laws. And the election codes, those apply to legitimate voters. That's all we're asking. And we can do this before the election. It can be done.
Okay.
That's why you are the best supervisor.
Okay. We're going to close public comments. And we're going to, Tim, I can't, everybody's going to want to talk now. It's bad enough I let Shelby get in trouble on that one. We can't do that.
We have concerns. You've said things, we can't respond to them. We're running out of time for our election. So you said that essentially, let me summarize, you guys, I am trying to be so honest and represent what you said fairly. I think you are telling us, essentially, your hands are tied by the state law. That's how you feel.
In many circumstances.
Okay, so, but you are our representatives. You are the closest people to us. You live in our communities. You live down the street from some of these people. And so we are appealing to the local government that's closest to us to speak up. And if you feel that your hands are tied, then you should be raising your hand and saying, "State, you're tying my hand."
That's what I just said I did. I've been doing.
Okay, well, hold on. Oh, thank you for that. Okay, so, but what it's going to come down to is you're going to have an election that has all these problems with the voter rolls and signature verification and all these things, and we are not going to trust it. Trust is on the line. And we are going to ask you guys to stand in the gap for us, because the certification of the election, legal speak aside, rests with the Board of Supervisors. Last time you certified the last election, you said, oh, well, we don't actually certify it. We just, all we have to do is accept the results that Art gives us. But if you say, if you could call the local media and say, guys, this is a problem with our election. I'm not sure that I can certify this in good conscience. And so I need to go public with that. And the state's gonna be upset with you. The state's gonna say, you're subverting elections. You just follow the law. Everything's fine, and you can say, this does not compute. And my responsibility is to the local people to stand up and say that. Now, I have one more point along those lines. So, your concern, and again, I'm trying to accurately reflect what you guys have said, is that you would be liable, could be sued, if you don't follow these laws and all of that. Who is going to sue you for that? Probably the state attorney general, someone in the state. Now, if you get sued for doing your job according to the best of your ability as county supervisors, and you say, I can't certify this, then the county will support you as you are being sued. The county resources will be used to help you to stand up as you're sued by the state. So you're not alone. The people are here. The government.
Okay, I let you talk. I'm going to respond to that. Just one avenue that you are not acknowledging, and that is you have a lot of candidates that their races would be gone. And I said that the last time when certifying it. Okay. Their races could not be certified, they would not be recognized. So they've done this work. Okay, I'm not going to go. No.
I'm a candidate for city council for this upcoming election. And if you do conditional certification, it still moves forward, but it calls for an audit.
Yes.
This is conditional certification.
I have a lot to talk over here with our attorneys, so if that's, I mean, this is the reason why. You may think that this is not a fair thing. We heard you. We both have been taking notes. Staff over here have been taking notes, and I know Art's been typing most of what you're saying, and we're all, because you're piquing our curiosity, you're making us research. I can't respond without looking up and having a conversation. My chief of staff, Phil, over here, he's an elected official as well as my chief of staff. So we've both been around in elections a long time. There's so many avenues on this, and Manny and I need to talk. And there's so much more than just this 3 hours today. That's why I keep trying to say that. So I don't ever discount anything that you give me. I have it all. I have spread it around my house. My kids have looked at it. My baby's 33, so they're not really kids. But the point I'm saying is, it takes a while to look this up. I need to go to Ross. I need to, ask questions and see what our options are.
Okay, Madam Chair. Tim, you spoke very well right now. I really appreciate what you had to say. I mean, everyone here had some great points, but I really liked how we are ending this conversation per se. I like what you had to say. It was very eloquent, and it made sense to me. Of course, at the end of the day, we are where the rubber meets the road. I hear you. I used to be in the state legislature. I was a council member, a school board member. This is where it's at. I get it. And although the state and the feds are the responsible actors at the end of the day, it doesn't mean, though, as you stated and others have stated, that we can't do something about it. Ken wrote a letter, didn't get anywhere, but he wrote a letter. We can write as much letters as we want as well, but we're not just about letters, right? We want to take some actions. So, why not what Sherry said, let's take a look at our advanced forgery technologies. What does that look like? What does that really mean? I don't know what it means. That's the first time I even heard of something like that today. So I was educated by it. Shelby, it does concern me as well. 16, 17-year-old teenagers on the roads, and are actually active, all right. I want to dig deep into that and find out what's going on here. And there's injunctions in Florida? Okay, let's look at that as a case study. Let's learn from that. I can appreciate that. Greg, a forensic audit. Not just an audit, but a forensic audit. And let's think through that. And what does that mean? What does that cost? Right? And if it's, at the end of the day, I think it's all worth it, but we need to really dig deep into that as well. And why not have one if people are asking for it? Do we examine the equipment like Terry said? I don't know we do. I'm at fault by not knowing that. I'm going to be asking that question. I need to go find out what's going on with that issue there. Joseph, you talked about vote by mail and wanting to go back to the good old days, I guess. Well, that's going to be a tough one, but it doesn't mean that we cannot state something about that. Look, there's so many great points that were made here, and I can go down a list. The only 2 points that I disagree with is when folks start saying the word wetback. That's derogatory. That's not going to get us anywhere. It's not going to get me to move. What gets me to move is what all you others said eloquently, with data, with stats, and with statistics, and with goodwill. So with that, folks, I took a bunch of notes. I just shared some with you. I got many more. We're going to come back. Okay? You got my word on that. How soon can we do that?
Just real quick also, and I said this at the board meeting, what Cece brought up was that CrowdStrike. That to me should be frightening all of us. So we need to make sure we have the backup. I mean, that to me, no matter how much work we do up front, something like that happens the day of election. That is the more terrifying thing for me. So.
They said when. They're asking when.
Oh, when the meeting? We can't do exact dates right now. We have to get our calendars together.
Timeline, I would say, I would hope for less than a month, between 2 weeks and less than a month. That's what I'm shooting for, Karen. Thank you. All right, folks, we got some work to do.
Well, with that, we're just going to conclude right now.
Yes, ma'am.